everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Summer Abroad Ecuador information session. We're really happy that you're joining us today to learn more about the program. So a couple of things about the format of today's session. So it is a webinar format, so it's a little bit different from the Zoom meetings that you might be used to. So for instance, you're not able to turn on your camera or your mic. However, we do really want to hear from you. So I want to encourage you to put all your questions in the Q&A module that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. So the chat will not be monitored. The chat we'll be using to put some useful links in for you to look at. So look at the chat for the links that we're going to give you. But in terms of communicating, we're going to use the Q&A function. One other note is that the session is being recorded. And that way, in a couple of days, we'll send you a link to the recording and you can share it with your parents, you can share it with your friends, have everyone learn a little bit more about the program. And it'll also be posted on our website in a couple of days. So I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So in terms of what we'll be covering today, so we'll start off with some introductions in a minute. We will give you an overview of the Summer Abroad program. And then we'll get to the details about Ecuador and the course that we're offering there this summer. We'll also talk about how to apply. We'll talk about costs and financial aid. And then we'll talk about next steps and how the admission process works. So in terms of introductions, my name is Genevieve, and I'm one of the program coordinators in the Summer Abroad office. For those of you who don't know, Summer Abroad is part of Woodsworth College, so that's where our offices are located, but our programs are open to students from every college, every faculty, every campus. We really get students from all over the university in our programs. I also have with me my colleague Jennifer, also from the Summer Abroad office. She's one of the other program coordinators, and she will be helping out with the Q&A module. And also dropping some useful links into the chat as we go along. I also have our two professors who will be co-teaching the course this summer, Professor Barbara Murck and Professor Christoph Richter. And I will hand things off to them shortly, and they'll give you some more details about Ecuador and about the course. But first, we're going to get to some general information about Summer Abroad. So what is Summer Abroad? So in all of our Summer Abroad programs, it's U of T courses. You earn a full Y credit in 3 to 6 weeks during the summer. So that's one FCE that you earn. So it's quite condensed. We offer small class sizes. Our programs are always between 18 and 30 students. Sometimes they're a little bit smaller than that, but they would not go over 30 students. Because it's a U of T credit and not a transfer credit like you would get during an exchange, you can use the credit to fulfill all your program requirements. And the grade also shows on your transcript, just like a regular U of T course. So you see the U of T course code and the grade, and it counts towards your CGPA. Our programs are taught by U of T faculty and also international faculty, depending on the program. Also, what sets us apart from some exchange programs is that you have access to on-site non-academic support. So you're not just on your own studying at another university. You have the host institution supporting our whole group and access to really any kind of support that you need while you're on site. It gives you an opportunity to work closely with your professors and other students. And most of all, you really get to experience what you learn. All of the courses that we offer as part of Summer Abroad are really geared towards the specific location. So that's fully incorporated into the course material. And there's the expectation that you will be completely immersed in the environment that you're learning about. And of course, it's an opportunity to connect with other faculty from abroad, and you'll meet guest speakers, other local experts. So you're really expanding your your network of contacts. So there are a lot of professional benefits, as I mentioned, building your network, meeting new people, meeting new faculty, and exploring possibilities for graduate school. We've heard of many students who've come back to us and said that they ended up going to grad school where they had done their summer abroad. They were so inspired by the location and by the course material that they really decided to pursue it. And it's a great way to gain international experience. So that's something that students put on their resume, that you put on your academic CV. Having the international experience and having studied in another country is really beneficial for you. And of course, personal development. And we get a lot of these ideas from the feedback that we get from students when we survey them after the program. So one thing they say all the time is they make lifelong friends. We know that many of the people who've done even the Ecuador program and some of our other programs still get together for reunions with each other, 5 years afterwards. So you really make close connections. It's a great way to gain independence and confidence too. So some of our students have never traveled before. Some are more experienced travelers, but we have all, people from all kinds of experienced backgrounds in the program. And it's a great way to sort of start your traveling experience because you still have the support of being with a group and being on a U of T program. And because our classes are so small, another thing students mention is it may have been the first time that they've been doing presentations in class. So it's a really great opportunity to develop those presentation and communication skills. So you're really immersing yourself in the course content. Students tend to do well in summer abroad because they're so immersed in it. They're only taking the one course at a time, so they're not distracted by other courses. They are in class, in most of our summer abroad programs, you're in class 4 days a week. In the Ecuador program, you're really in class all the time. So you're fully immersed in the subject matter. And you're just really connected to the course material. And so students really get inspired and really tend to do well. So in terms of eligibility, as I mentioned, it's open to all U of T students, no matter what faculty you're at, no matter what college. It's also open to U of T alumni. Some students have come back maybe after just finishing 4th year and they want to do it at the end of their degree. That's fine, they're eligible to do that. You do have to be in good academic standing and have completed at least one term of study by the time of application. And you have to have a CGPA above 1.75. If you are a first-year student and you don't have any grades on your record yet, that's fine. First-year students are also considered, even if you don't have a CGPA yet on your transcript. We're also open to visiting students. Sometimes we have students from other universities who come and join us. Often it's a friend of theirs who's doing the program and they get their friend to come as well. So if you do know anyone who would be interested in this program, feel free to spread the word and they can get in touch with us and we can explain to them how they would apply. So Ecuador, at a glance, these are our dates. It's from July 4th to July 31st of 2022. This is the 17th year of the Ecuador program. And the course that will be taught is ENV 395Y, Ecology and Conservation in the Amazon, Andes, and Cloud Forest. It is run in partnership with our host university, USFQ, the Universidad San Francisco de Quito. And it is taught, as I mentioned, by U of T faculty who we'll hear from very soon, as well as local guides and USFQ faculty. And again, very small class size, up to a maximum of 25 for the Ecuador program. So just a quick mention of our host, the USFQ. They have been our partner with this program for 17 years. And they are excellent, excellent hosts, and they make all of the logistical arrangements for us on site. We also use their classrooms when we're in Quito. And most importantly, we use the Tiputini Biodiversity Station, TBS, which is a USFQ research facility, which is not open to the public. So we're grateful that we're able to use these facilities that they have. And they've been a great partner to us for many years, and the program always runs very smoothly thanks to all of their logistic organizing. So that's our host institution. Now we're going to get to a little bit about the course. So as I mentioned, it's called Ecology and Conservation in the Andes, Amazon, and Cloud Forest. The recommended prep is ENV 200 or Bio 150 or 120, but that really is only a recommended preparation. If you don't have those prerequisites, still definitely apply. We have students from all backgrounds, all academic backgrounds doing the program. So don't be too worried about the recommended preparation part. And in terms of breadth requirement, it counts for 3 and 4. So I'd like to introduce our two professors who are joining us today. We have Barbara Murck, who is a professor at UTM in the Department of Geography, and Christoph Richter, an associate professor in the Department of Biology at UTM. So I will hand it over to you both.
Great. Hi, everyone. We'll probably speak over top of each other. That's what we do. I just want to mention that these courses and breadth requirements, these are specific to St. George. For example, at UTM, our Environment 100 is equivalent to Environment 200 downtown, all by way of saying, again, don't worry too much about these specific requirements. You know, yes, you need to have some interest in environment, ecology, conservation, stuff like that. But we're mostly interested in people who are game, who want to go out and learn about this country and learn about these unique ecosystems. And so we don't assume any specific background. We've had students from philosophy and engineering and statistics, and I can't think of other ones, Chris, but everything under the sun.
Definitely
So
art students too.
yep. So
Yep.
please do apply. And so we'll be going to 3 main environments. So we're based in Quito. Our might as well follow the itinerary here. The first week of class will be virtual. We're planning on meeting synchronously on the Monday, and then we'll have recorded lectures for you to watch before we go to Ecuador that will provide a base. And we'll be available for virtual office hours throughout that week. And then we'll be in country from July 9th through July 31st. Chris, interrupt me if you think of anything that you want to say. Our home base is in Quito, actually in a suburb of Quito called Cumbaya, and we'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. We'll spend a little bit of time in Quito. We'll visit the historic center of Quito. We'll visit the equator and some traditional markets and stuff like that. And then our 3 main environments that we're visiting are the high Andes, the cloud forest, and the Amazon in Tiputini Biodiversity Station. So I'll just mention right here that I'm sure many of you are aware that the course used to include Galapagos. And for various reasons, we are splitting it into 2 separate courses. This is something that we had thought of doing prior to the pandemic, because the course was getting to be just too full, to be perfectly honest. And also we were spending a lot of time in country, and also it was very expensive. So we are splitting the course. This year we'll be going to the Amazon, the high Andes, and the cloud forest. And next year, our hope is to run the other half of the course, Galapagos and the coastal region. And both will be Y courses. And you will be eligible to take both courses if you are interested. I think that's all we need for the itinerary. Right, so for the accommodations, we are usually in double or triple or quad occupancy rooms in, let's say kind of basic hotels for the most. When we're in a hotel, they're usually pretty basic. They're not like terrible, but they're not, really upscale resorts or something like that. We stay with an indigenous family when we're in the high Andes, and it's pretty basic. Sometimes they don't even muster up running water, but we make do. And then when we're in the Amazon, we are in cabins at the biodiversity station there. Um, most of the meals are included in the itinerary. We have scheduled in some dinners, mostly dinners in, I think when we're on the road, pretty much everything is covered. So when we're in the high Andes, when we're in the cloud forest, and when we're in the Amazon, it's all going to be included. There will be some meals in Quito that we've scheduled for you to be on your own, just to have some independence and be able to go different places. And we'll talk a lot more later about the details of, how much extra money should you bring for this or that purpose or whatever. We can accommodate vegetarians. Some of the more remote places that we go, they haven't really wrapped their heads around the concept of veganism. And so we found that vegans sometimes have to be a little bit more flexible. You may want to bring nut butters with you or something like that to just supplement. And again, for dietary, needs and all that, we'll talk a lot more about all that stuff later on. So don't worry, we can handle that kind of thing. So this is our home base in Quito. It's a beautiful city in the high Andes, and we'll visit historic churches and historic government buildings and all kinds of stuff. On the bottom right is our home sweet home, home away from home, the Hotel Kumbaya, evidently taken, I don't know, in the very early morning because everything is closed. All the stores on the bottom are closed, but that's our hotel. And this is on the top right is what a typical room would look like with bunk beds and so on. Okay. And then we will, Chris, do you want to chime in or should I keep going?
If you want to keep going, and or if you want to hand over at some point, I'm good.
So our sort of first major expedition will be into the high Andes. Quito is already in the Andes, but into the high Andes, and we'll be learning about the Andean, what we call the paramo, the high altitude sort of pasture lands, grasslands in the high Andes, ecology, wildlife, and we'll also be visiting, as I said, an indigenous family, which is like, we could talk about that for a long time. I'll just throw that out there. We'll talk about how the Andes formed, the physical processes. We'll visit dormant and active volcanoes. The volcano that you see on the upper right is the same one that's in the background behind Chris. And that's the highest point on the equator anywhere in the world. And we're not going to summit, it's a technical summit, but we'll go pretty close to the snow line on this volcano. And then we'll visit also an active volcano at Cotopaxi National Park, which erupted just a few years ago, actually. Yeah, I think that's probably it. We'll visit as well. And so this is something that we're able to do a little more of than we've done in the past because we're moving the Galapagos part of the course into a different course. We're now able to expand the time that we spend in the cloud forest, which is great. And it is a different environment from the Amazon, quite different. And we're going to be visiting cloud forests or tropical montane forests on both slopes of the Andes, the Pacific slope and the Amazon slope. And the biodiversity is amazing, especially the birds. You can see a hummingbird on the bottom there eating, that's an Ecuadorian hill star, right, Chris? Is that right? The plant, which is, I think it's it's either national plant of Ecuador or it's the national plant of that province.
It's the plant of the province, yeah.
Yeah. And you'll see there also, how we'll be traveling around on trails in the cloud forest with our guides, our much loved guides from USFQ. So looking forward to seeing them after 2 years. Yep. Chris, do you want to do the Amazon? Go for it.
Sure. And then we go into a totally different environment again. And when you heard before that we are going to be immersed in it, this is kind of like what I always think about, because we literally take hours to get there and then we're there. And we spent a week at the Tipitini Biological Station at a place that is considered one of the most biodiverse spots in the world. And very few people have the privilege to go there. So it's not something that tourists can visit. It's a research station, and we'll be there for a whole week. Oh, great. Yeah, so to give you a bit of a sense of how far we are, so we'll actually take a bus from Quito to Coca, which is a mining town, and then we...
Well, and so one of the cool things is that we actually go from the mountain that is behind Christoph, which is the summit is more than we go to 5,000 meters in altitude, 5 kilometers above sea level. And then in the course of a few days, we'll travel back to Quito, into the cloud forests, and down into the Amazon basin, and we'll lose 5 kilometers of altitude in the space of a few days. It's an amazing journey.
Yep. And through 3 very different ecozones. And so to get to the station, we actually started by a 2-hour boat ride. Then we take one of those buses that you see on the top right for another 2 hours. And then we have another 2-hour boat ride to end up at the station. And it is difficult travel. So as Barb said, the cottages that we're in are nice, but basic. Be prepared for a week away from Wi-Fi and the kind of other sort of things that you might do during the day. But the place that we are is absolutely and utterly stunning, and we are literally immersed in it. So the photo in the middle is the dining room. There are no walls. It's open to the rainforest around us. The photo to the left is where we have our, where there's the library and the labs are in there. So that's where we meet for the presentations that you'll do. And then on the right, you'll see a couple of scenes from the things that you might encounter. So you could step out of your cottage in the morning and see one of the tamarins climbing up on the tree there. And again, we're walking with guides on a number of walks, guides who've been working there, who know Tipitini and the environments like their pockets. So they'll tell us about the plants, the animals, the environment. And when we're there, you will be working on a project. So you'll develop a little research project that you collect data on. And at the end of the week, we have a little symposium, environmental 395 symposium, where you present your findings. So it's a full-on experience in all aspects. One of the things we can do is there's a tree tower. You can see the stairs going up there along the stem of this tree on the left-hand side, and the photo on the right is on the top of it. So it's literally a platform that allows you to view over the rainforest around you. And it's quite a hike to get up there, but when you're up there, it's just, you look around and it's trees everywhere.
Actually, my background is taken from the
Right.
platform on top of the canopy tower, looking out over the rainforest canopy to, Brazil, basically.
So this is a little bit tentative still. We're still sorting out a few things, but basically what we'll ask you to do is, before we start the course, we'll ask you to do a pre-departure assignment, which will probably be a short description of one of the species that we'll hope to encounter, plants or animal. So you'll be the local expert, and when we encounter that species, we'll ask you to let everybody else in the group know what you know about that organism. As I just mentioned, we'll have a project that you collect the data for, you design, you collect the data for, and you analyze and present in the Amazon. And then we have a couple of tests and the term paper, which as of now we have due after we come back. So we'll work on it, or you'll start planning on it and deciding on the topic during our trip. We'll be able to help you make your choices, and then you complete the research on that when we're back. Now, hopefully one of the things that has become clear is that A, we'll be traveling a lot. B, we'll be traveling in very, very different places. So in the Andes, when we're at height, it'll be cold. And then we
Yeah,
end up,
we're talking toques, mittens, and winter coats and boots.
yep, like you can see the people here in the foot on the top. And then we're in the Amazon. Obviously, it'll be just the opposite. It'll be hot, it'll be humid. So be prepared for, being challenged by these physical conditions. In all of the places that we go, we will do hikes. Now they're not out of this world, as Barb said. You don't need to have mountain climbing experience or any other experience, but we do expect that you're willing and able and interested to do hikes that could be a couple of hours, sometimes in rain, up slopes, so in rough weather and or rough conditions.
I guess we should just mention as well that the yellow fever thing, we don't have a choice about that. We won't get into the Amazon if we don't have everyone with the yellow fever vaccination. I don't know, Jen, did you want to mention the COVID? So the university has interacted extensively with Universidad San Francisco about COVID-19 protocols, and they are really well prepared. So we're happy. So yeah, I mean, I think this reality check idea is something that you'll be encouraged to think about for any of the summer abroad courses. I mean, it is a different country, it's a different language, it's a different, cultural differences, and sometimes people have very specific concerns. If you're a LGBTQ traveler, you might have specific concerns. So many of these specific concerns can be addressed when you do your pre-departure orientations with Safety Abroad, or approach us about them or whatever. But yeah, like as Christoph said, we're looking for people who are up for it. We're looking for people who want to be out there and want to be experiencing these amazing environments and learning stuff. And we're not athletes. I'm in my 60s. I'm not a technical climber, but trust me, I'm going to be on every single one of these hikes. And we help each other. The group gets very, very close because we're together a lot. And so you need to, I think, be prepared for that. And we've dealt with, situations where people have got to Ecuador and decide that, they're nervous or they're missing home or something. And what we've usually found is that if they give themselves a bit of a chance and get involved in some of the activities and interact with their colleagues, it's probably going to be fine. But it's definitely worth thinking about these things for any of the summer abroad courses, I would say. And then with that last point on there is we can handle students with certain accessibility needs. Not everything, but if you need, extra time on a test or something, Universidad San Francisco is very much set up to be able to handle that kind of thing. So there's a couple of questions about the yellow fever, and we will talk about those in a lot of detail when we do our sort of country orientation thing. But any travel, what do you call them? Travel clinics. And I don't think you have to particularly worry about, like, you could go get it now if you want to. I think it just has to be up to date. I think yellow fever are good for 10 years. Am I right about that? Or it's at least 5 years. So if you want to go and get it now, you can, but it just has to be in place and you have to have the certificate and we have to have sent it to USFQ before we go. That's all. There are going to be other health considerations that we'll talk about in more detail that we probably won't do right now. Things like, should you consider high altitude medication? Should you consider, malaria medication? Stuff like that. And so we can talk about all of that stuff. And what we're mostly going to say is consult with a travel doctor. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Barb and Christoph. So if you do have any questions as we go along, please be sure to put them into the Q&A. I don't see any questions at the moment for our professors, but again, they'll be here if you think of anything as we go. So let's talk about some of the details of getting there. So we ask students to review on an ongoing basis the most up-to-date entry requirements, various COVID-19 requirements such as screening, testing, proof of vaccination, and or quarantine requirements. So as you all know, the requirements can change on a daily basis. So we want you to be sure that you're up to date on what will be required. We also monitor these very carefully for all of our locations, and we will keep you up to date as well on what will be required. All students have to attend the mandatory pre-departure orientation. We've always had it mandatory for Ecuador because there's so much to talk about, as our professors mentioned, things like what to pack, all of these things in addition to things like COVID protocols. So that will be a mandatory orientation. Now, students will have to make their own travel arrangements to Quito. So you will be booking your own flights. What we'll do is after the admission process, we will send people a suggested flight, and we will strongly urge everyone to book themselves onto that particular flight. And that way, pretty much the whole group can be flying together. And then they'll get the transportation from the airport in Quito to the hotel. Even if you're not on that particular suggested flight, we ask you to arrive within an hour or so on either end and to meet the group at the airport for transportation to the hotel. But we will, again, we'll provide you much more information on that at the pre-departure orientation, and you'll get the suggested flight well in advance. So in terms of visa and insurance, students are responsible for arranging their own visa if necessary. So you can get started now checking what your requirements are. Right now, I just checked yesterday for Canadian citizens. You only need a passport, but there can be other requirements. So you do need to check the travel website, the government travel website, to see what your entry requirements are. For international students, you should check with the Ecuadorian consulate in Toronto. Luckily, they're actually fairly close to U of T, and you can check their website as well and find out what type of visa, or if you do require a visa, what it would be and what the process is. We ask you to apply in Toronto if possible. It's very important that we are able to provide you with supporting documentation for your visa application. And it's much easier for us to provide that information, communicate with the embassy if you're still in Toronto. And in terms of insurance, students are responsible for their own travel, health, and cancellation insurance. So we urge you to look into your policy and make sure that you have adequate travel health coverage. So things like if you did have to quarantine, or if you were sick, really for any other reason, COVID or any other reason, you want to see what your coverage is and what your coverage would be if you had to stay a couple of extra days, how that would work in terms of paying for that. Also, definitely cancellation insurance for your flight. As we know, things are changing all the time. So try to protect yourself as much as you can by purchasing cancellation insurance. So in terms of the costs of the program, and this cost chart can be found on our website as well. We've got a total at the bottom, one for domestic students. International students, the course fee is a little bit higher just due to the tuition differences. And this is a figure that shows you how much you will need to budget in total. Not all of these things are paid directly to U of T. So we've included everything on the chart, things that are paid directly to Summer Abroad, as well as things that you will be purchasing on your own, such as airfare, meals, things like that, to give you this kind of grand total so that you know what to budget for the entire costs of the program. So the application fee and course fee are paid to Summer Abroad. The U of T incidental fee is on Acorn, and that gets triggered when we add the course for you. Field trip fees are also paid to Summer Abroad, as are accommodation and meals. But things like your airfare, that's going to be variable. That's an estimate based on what the cost was in December for a flight to Quito. Meals, you might want to budget a little bit more depending on what your own habits are. And you'll see it here, tips. That's something that our profs will definitely talk a little bit more about at the orientation. Because at each location, all the local guides do require tips. That's how it works in Ecuador. What they do is they pool the students' money upon arrival in Ecuador, and then the profs are responsible for tipping for the group. Profs, if you want to chime in and say anything on it, but I think that's pretty much what the process is for the tipping.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it more later. It's just way too complicated if everybody's having to, you know, whip out 50 cents or $1 or something every few, you know, 4 times a day. Like it just
Yeah.
gets to be way too complicated. So nobody has to worry about any tipping at all. We just collect it at the beginning and we take care of it. And it's actually is a kind of an important aspect of the trip because it maintains our goodwill with our guides and people like that. So we need to make sure that, you know, we're tipping appropriately. So
Right.
yeah.
Great. Thanks. Now, in terms of financing, so we ask you to definitely start budgeting now. You know approximately how much it's going to cost. So you really need to start thinking now. Payments will be due in late April and May. Now, there's also quite a lot of funding available for this program. So we have Summer Abroad Awards, which I'll talk about in a second. And there are also awards offered by the Center for International Experience. And you should also check with your own registrar's office. You can make an appointment with a financial aid counselor. Some of the colleges do have travel bursaries that students are eligible for. And you can apply for and receive funds from multiple sources. So definitely that is something that you should look into. We can provide you a lot of guidance on the Summer Abroad Awards, but there are a lot of other funding opportunities out there for you to get if possible. So as I mentioned, we do have Summer Abroad bursaries. Those are up to $4,000 for the Ecuador program. And you apply for those online while you're applying for the program. So it's a pretty seamless process. The application system will ask you, do you want to apply for a bursary? You say yes. And some more bursary related questions will open up that we ask you to fill out. And then you submit everything at the same time, your program application as well as your bursary application. So they're available to U of T domestic students who have completed at least 4 full credits by December 2021. So by now you'll have had to complete 4 full credits with a minimum CGPA of 2.25. Ours are only available to Canadian citizens or permanent residents, but you should check with your college and in particular check with CIE, the Center for International Experience, because I believe that they do have some funding available for international students as well. And as you can see, it wouldn't cover the full cost of the program, so you will have to come up with the rest of the funds, possibly from multiple sources. It's also eligible for OSAP. If you're currently on fall-winter OSAP, you would apply for what's called the summer extension. Now, usually this grants about $375 per week for the duration of the program. So that's 4 weeks. It's not a huge amount, but it can definitely help you, particularly with on-site expenses. Now, they don't release the funds until the very start of the program as well. And summer abroad fees will be due well before then. So that's something to keep in mind if you're counting on some OSAP funding as well. So before you apply, for travel during COVID-19, we ask you to review the COVID-19 planning page with the Safety Abroad office. And they have a travel checklist to guide you through the important things that you need to do before you travel. So I believe my colleague Jennifer will be dropping the link into the chat. So definitely visit the Safety Abroad website. You also must be fully vaccinated by completing a COVID-19 vaccine series. Now, this is a requirement for all U of T students just to be registered in any courses. So we're assuming that as a U of T student that you will have completed your full COVID-19 vaccination. Another great resource is the FAQ page on the Summer Abroad website. You can find that by going to our website, and it's one of the items on the banner at the top. And that will answer a lot of common questions that we have about the program, not just about COVID-19, but about other policies as well. And you can review our COVID planning page, and I believe I have a screenshot of it. So when you're on our website, when you go to the apply button, it'll bring you to this page where you can select the COVID-19 update and planning. Definitely read through all of this, and it will also give you links to other supports like International SOS and the Safety Abroad planning page as well. And this is what the Safety Abroad planning page looks like. So we're giving you a lot of resources, a lot of research for you to do. But we want to make sure that you're as well informed as possible. So in terms of applying for summer abroad, applications are now open. The application deadline for Ecuador is March 14th. So we've extended a little bit. You're going to see in other places that the deadline is March 1st, but for this particular program, we've moved it back to the 14th. And you will be based on a set of criteria. It's not first come, first serve. We look at your academic suitability. So we do look at your CGPA, but we also pay really close attention to your personal statement. So it's not just sort of like a generic cover letter that we want to see. We want to see real information about why you're a good fit for the program, how this experience fits into your personal goals, your academic goals, and really why you want to go to Ecuador. I mean, we don't expect you to know a lot about it yet, but just to show that you have some interest, you've done a little bit of research, you kind of know what to expect, and that you're a good fit for the program. So I would say we look 50-50 at CGPA and at that personal statement. And when you go to apply for the personal statement, we do give you 4 different questions that we ask you to consider and to address in your statement. It's not a huge statement, it's 500 words, but it is something definitely to pay attention to for your application. There is a $200 application fee, and that is paid when you submit your application, and it would be refunded if you're not accepted to the program. Also, if you have applied to the program and also applied for our summer abroad bursaries, if you don't get the funding and if you need to withdraw because of that, you would also have your application fee refunded. So there's nothing to lose by applying. And this is what the application looks like. So you can access it from our website, and you basically go through. It doesn't take you too long to do. Go through and make sure that there are green check marks next to all of these, and that means that you've completed every section. Once you pay the application fee, be sure to come back into your application and click submit. And that way we will have received your application, and you will get an email from Summer Abroad saying that we have received it. So you will hear from us in early April. We send the decisions by email, and different programs in Summer Abroad will be notified at different times. So don't panic if your friend who applied to Germany got their decision yet. We will be informing everyone. And so we'll inform you whether you've been admitted or not. And we will also inform you at the same time whether you received a Summer Abroad bursary. Now, because of the uncertainty around COVID-19, if travel restrictions are reimposed, so currently they've just recently been lifted, which is why we're really happy to be moving ahead with our on-site programs. We never know what could happen. If restrictions are reimposed, then the on-site summer abroad programs will pivot to a virtual summer abroad program. So at that time, we will give you the choice as to whether you would want to participate in the virtual program or not. So if you are admitted to the program and we notify you by email, you'll have 1 week to confirm your participation by paying a non-refundable $1,000 deposit. So if you are accepted and you decline the offer, you would not receive a refund of your application fee. The exception to that, as I mentioned, is if you applied for a summer abroad bursary and did not receive it, then in that case, we would make an exception and we would refund the application fee. And then the remaining fees will be due roughly 4 weeks after the deposit date. So I think that's it for the formal part of the presentation. This page is really to highlight the many ways that you can get in touch with us, and we really encourage you to do so. Of course, visit our website. We're glad that you attended the info session today. And you can also book an appointment. So if you want to find out a little bit more, you can book an appointment online with me, and we can chat about any concerns that you have. And we also ask you, if you're interested, to follow us on Instagram, and yeah, to contact us and reach out if you have any questions. And for now, I want to see if there are any questions in the Q&A. I don't see any at the moment. So I think that will probably be it for the session, unless anything else comes in the next minute or so. So thank you very much for joining us. We're really glad that there's interest in the Ecuador program, and we really hope that you'll apply and participate in the program. Thank you to my colleague Jennifer for helping out with the chat and the Q&A. And thank you so much to Professors Murck and Richter for joining us and talking about the course. Yeah, so if you want to get in touch, again, you can book an appointment with me, or you can send an email. I'm reachable at ecuador.abroad@utoronto.ca. So again, thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Take care.